Hey guys, I know it's been ages, but I'm finally back and I'm hoping to release new videos a little bit more regularly. Today I have a nice roast pork loin for you guys, served with an apple gastrique. The carrots I've already shown in an older video, and the risotto you will see in a future one. Now, the pork loin is a relatively cheap cut, but can turn out very nice if cooked properly. And overcooking will turn this lean cut dry and tough, so we're going to shoot for a nice medium rare using a low temperature roasting technique to make sure the thick roast is evenly cooked. This guy is boneless, but you may also see it with the bones on, which looks a little nicer on the plate, and this recipe will work the same either way. To start, we're just going to generously salt and pepper the outside, ideally a day or two early. When you take it out to cook it, you'll see the salt has disappeared from the surface of the meat, and some of it is absorbed in, seasoning a little bit deeper and helping dry the outside to get a nice crispy crust at the end of the cooking process. Now, we're going to roast it on a wire rack in a shallow pan. We want there to be some air underneath so the bottom's not heating up too fast on the metal pan, and a bit of foil will make cleaning up cooked drippings easier. So as I mentioned earlier, we're going to cook this at a fairly low temperature, preheating to 130 degrees Celsius or 260 Fahrenheit. I don't have time to go into the details, but basically, the closer the oven temperature to the final interior temperature of the meat, the thinner the band of overcooked meat at the edge will be. When we're preheated, pop it into the oven on the middle rack. We'll check the temperature in about an hour, but in the meantime, let's make a gastrique. Basically the French equivalent of a sweet and sour sauce. Essentially, it's caramelized sugar mixed with vinegar. Today we're making an apple gastrique, so let's peel an apple or two. I think I had Fuji on hand, but any apple will work. The acid from the vinegar will keep it from falling apart too much. We want pieces small enough to serve. I've diced them here, but you can also cut wedges or the like, whatever you like. Now don't forget to check the roast. I didn't want to spook my family with pork that's too pink, so I pulled it at 61 degrees Celsius. But for medium rare, you can take it out around 57 or 58 in the center. You can see the outside isn't very nice because of the low temperature, so nothing's really browned, but we're not done yet. Tent it with foil to keep it warm and crank the oven up as high as you can get it. Back to the gastrique, we're going to mix half a cup of sugar with 2 tablespoons of water. Cook it at medium-high, swirling now and again to make sure it's well mixed. You'll see that the sugar first dissolves, then the water will start to boil. Eventually, the color will start to darken. The darker we let it go, the stronger the caramel flavor. Pork is pretty robust, so let's let it go to a deep golden brown. Next, we're going to add sherry vinegar 1-to-1 with the amount of sugar we used, half a cup in this case. The trick here is to dump it in as quickly as possible. It's a little bit counterintuitive, but going slowly will make it splatter more. Just watch your hands and don't be timid here. When it's settled down a bit, we can stir it and try to redissolve all the caramelized sugar. Once we're back to a thin liquid, we're basically done, but we're going to flavor the gastrique. So we'll do a couple of sprigs of rosemary, a few cloves, and then our apples from earlier. We want to cook and soften the apples, infuse some flavor into the gastrique, and thicken it into a bit of a syrup so it doesn't run all over the plate. When it's thick enough to coat a spoon, we can take it off the stove to cool a little bit. Once it's cooled enough to not burn your tongue, we can add salt to taste. By now, the oven should be preheated again, and we can put the roast back in to crisp up the outside and get a nice crust. Watch it and make sure it doesn't burn. It should take about 5 or 10 minutes. The low temperature from before ensured even cooking, but the very high temperature will quickly brown the outside without significantly cooking the inside any further. We've already rested the pork while the oven was heating, so you can just slice it and serve with a gastrique. Now the gastrique is pretty strong, so a little bit goes a long way. The sweet sour sauce is the perfect balance to the salty crust of the pork, and you can plate it with a few apple slices if you like. Thanks for watching, and stay tuned for the how-to for the risotto.